Tonight we celebrate 10 years of Mastermind. Over this weekend we've met all 10 champions from 1972 to 1981, and now the top 4 are left to pit their wits against one another for our anniversary trophy. Now, Mastermind is a serious program, I suppose, but over the past 10 years it's also become one of the most popular. It's become one of the most imitated too, and catchphrases like pass and I've started so I'll finish haunt me wherever I go. We've been sent up and mocked and had the mickey taken out of us by some of the best comedians around. Not that we've minded one little bit, in fact no one has enjoyed it more than we have. I can remember on one occasion I was actually called in to chair a rather special edition in which the two contenders were Messrs. Eric Morecambe and Ernest Wise.
Well, let's play by the rules, shall we?
Professor Wise, for the last time, will you please return to your seat?
This is a rotten game.
Now, Mr. Morton, because this is the final question, the question that will decide who is to be Mastermind of 1974, I must ask you once and for all to obey the rules and give a proper answer.
Ready when you are, Polly?
Now, you do understand that if you cannot answer the question, you must say pass.
I fully understand.
All right, here's the deciding question, and it's on geography. It descends from Landi Kotal through Shinwaki territory to Nandi Khana. It is the most important route from Afghanistan into Pakistan. It's the Khyber what?
Pass.
The Khyber Pass, correct. Mr. Morton, you are Mastermind 1974.
Wait a minute, this isn't fair. This isn't right. It's not Mr. McManus. I'll never watch you wrestle again.
And two other top comedians who clearly had also been watching Mastermind very closely indeed were Ronnie Barker and Ronnie Corbett, the two Ronnies, perhaps the most brilliantly funny of all the Mastermind stand-ups.
And so to our first contender. Good evening, your name please.
Good evening.
Your first heat, your chosen subject was answering questions before they were asked. This time, you have chosen to answer the question before last each time. Is that correct?
Charlie Smithers.
And your time starts now. What is paleontology?
Yes, absolutely correct.
What's the name of the directory that lists members of the peerage?
A study of old fossils.
Correct. Who are Len Murray and Sir Geoffrey Howe?
Burks.
Correct. What is the difference between a donkey and an ass?
One's a trade union leader, the other's a member of the cabinet.
Correct. Complete the quotation, to be or not to be?
They're both the same.
Correct. What is Bernard Manning famous for?
That is the question.
Correct. Who is the present Archbishop of Canterbury?
He is a fat man who tells blue jokes.
Correct. What do people kneel on in church?
The Right Reverend Robert Runcie.
Correct. What do tarantulas prey on?
Hassocks.
Correct. What would you use a ripcord to pull open?
Large flies.
Correct. What sort of a person lived in Bedlam?
A parachute.
Correct. What is a jockstrap?
A nutcase.
For what purpose would a decorator use methylene chlorides?
A form of athletic support.
Correct. What did Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec do?
Paint strippers.
Correct. Who is Dean Martin?
He's a kind of artist.
Yes. What sort of artist?
Pass.
That's near enough. What make of vehicle is the standard London bus?
A singer.
Correct. In 1892, Brandon Thomas wrote a famous long-running English farce. What was it?
British Leyland.
Correct. Complete the following quotation. I started so I finished. Complete the following quotation about Mrs. Thatcher. Her heart may be in the right place, but her...
Charlie's aunt.
Correct. And the score 18 to the pass.
But now let's go to Guildhall in the City of London for the climax of our anniversary tournament and meet our final masterminds. welcome once again to the old library. And what a splendid setting it is for this, our 10th anniversary celebration. Now, if you've been with us all weekend, you'll know that 4 out of our 10 previous Mastermind winners have won their way to tonight's final. And very happily, they are 2 men and 2 women. And one of them, in half an hour's time or so, will receive this anniversary trophy, specially created for Mastermind by Dennis Mann of Caithness Glass, whom we're delighted to have here with us in Guildhall this evening. Now, our 4 contenders this evening are all winners from the 1970s. They are the 1973 Mastermind, Patricia Owen. From 1979, Philip Jenkins. The 1978 winner, Rosemary James. And from 1977, Sir David Hunt. So let's get the finale of our celebration underway, and may I have the first finalist, please? And our 4th finalist, please. Your name, please.
David Hunt,
Occupation.
retired ambassador.
In your first round, you took the history of Cyprus. What is your chosen specialized subject this time?
Alexander the Great.
Sir David, you have 2 minutes on Alexander the Great, starting now. When Alexander set out in his Persian campaign, whom did he leave in charge of Macedonia?
Antipater.
Correct. What hill fort was captured by Alexander when he took Roxana, his future wife, as prisoner?
Tashkurgan.
No, it was the Sogdian Rock. What incorrect geographical deduction did Alexander make from the fact that he had seen crocodiles in the river Indus?
He thought it joined the Nile.
Correct. Who was the admiral commanding the fleet that brought back part of Alexander's army from India?
Nearchus.
Correct. At Elias, Alexander sacrificed at the tomb of the first man of Agamemnon's army to set foot in Asia. Who was this traditional hero?
Protesilaus.
Correct. According to Arrian, why was Alexander's horse given the name Bucephalus?
Because it had a head like a horse as a brand on its flank. Head like a bull, I mean.
Yes, I'll accept that. Like an ox, in fact. In what battle was Alexander's life saved by Clytus?
Granicus.
Correct. Who was the son of Parmenio, who was implicated in a plot against Alexander and was tried and executed for treason in 330 BC?
Philotas.
Correct. According to Diodorus, who was the courtesan believed to have given Alexander the idea of burning the great palace of Persepolis?
Thais.
Correct. According to Plutarch, when Alexander visited the oracle of Ammon, he asked 2 questions. One was whether he would conquer the world. What was the other one?
Had he punished all his father's murderers?
Correct. Who was a satrap of Bactria, who abducted Darius III in a covered wagon, was pursued beyond the Caspian gates by Alexander?
Bessus.
Correct. When the soldiers in the Indian campaign refused to cross the river Hyphasis, who was a general that stated their case?
Clytus.
No,
Coinus.
Cenas. According to Arrian, when Alexander killed his friend Clytus in a drunken rage, soothsayers suggested that the act had been inspired by an offended god. Which one?
Dionysus.
Correct. At Opis in 324, what announcement did Alexander make that was the immediate cause of the mutiny of his troops?
That he would rely on Persian troops for the future.
No, that the old and unfit Macedonian troops were to be discharged. An historian, a pupil of Aristotle, refused to prostrate himself before Alexander. Who was he?
Callisthenes.
Correct. The whipping of a page named Hermolaeus provoked a conspiracy to kill Alexander. For what offence had he been punished?
Anticipating Alexander in killing a boar in a hunt.
Is correct. And at the end of that round, Sir David, you have scored 13 points and no passes. Thank you very much. And that brings us to the end of a keenly contested first round on specialized questions. And if we glance at the scoreboard, we'll see that lying in 4th place with 12 points is Mrs. Patricia Owen. In 3rd place with 13 points is David Hunt. In 2nd place with 16, Miss Rosemary James. But the leader by 1 point at the end of this first round on 17 is Dr. Philip Jenkins. On now to the second round of general knowledge questions. It could still be anyone's trophy. And remember, in the event of a tie, the number of passes will be taken into consideration. So far, between the 4 of them, there have only been 2 passes on the first round. And may I have the first finalist again, please? Lecturer.
And our fourth finalist again, please. Retired ambassador, expert on Cyprus, publishing next month an illustrated history of Cyprus called Footprints in Cyprus. Sir David Hunt. Lying in third place with 13 points on Alexander the Great. You have the target of a triple tie on 23 to beat. Your general knowledge question starting now. St. Paul told the chief captain who arrested him that he was a citizen of no mean city. Which city?
Tarsus.
Correct. What Tyler was leader of the peasants' revolt in 1381? From which county did he lead his followers to London?
Kent.
Correct. What's the capital of the Canadian province of Alberta?
Winnipeg.
No, Edmonton. In the Muslim religion, what's the name for the crier who proclaims the hours of prayer from a minaret?
Muezzin.
Correct. In yacht racing, why is the America's Cup so called?
After the schooner America.
Correct. Who was the former Attorney General who organised the Ulster Volunteers opposed to Home Rule for Ireland just before the First World War?
Carson.
Correct. Which of Rossini's operas was originally subtitled The Useless Precaution?
Pass.
In the ancient Roman calendar, what were the calends?
First of the month.
Correct. Who was the English statesman and historian, Lord Chancellor under Charles II, whose name was given to a printing house for the Oxford University Press?
Clarendon.
Correct. What kind of creature is a cottonmouth or water moccasin?
Snake.
Correct. Name one of the two West African states which formed a confederation in February this year.
Gambia.
Correct. A series of etchings, The Disasters of War, are a record of the horrors of the French invasion of Spain in the early 19th century by which artist?
Goya.
Correct. In one of Scott's Waverley novels, what was the Heart of Midlothian?
The Tolbooth.
Correct. What is the name for an ancient manuscript on which the writing has been effaced to make room for new writing?
Palimpsest.
Correct. Colonel Gaddafi of Libya gained power after a military coup overthrew the king in 1969. Who was the former king?
Idris.
Correct. Which English philosopher and statesman wrote in an essay, "Money is like muck, not good except it be spread"?
Pass.
Jacopo Peri is believed to have composed the earliest operas. In which Italian city were they first performed?
Venice.
No, Florence. What is the style of boat building called in which the external planks or strakes overlap downwards?
Clinker.
Correct. What was the name of the Russian marshal who achieved victory over Finland in 1939 to 40?
Tolbukin.
No, Timoshenko. In the human body, what... I've started, so I'll finish. In the human body, what is the more common name for the scapula?
The scapula. The shoulder blade.
Shoulder blade is right. And at the end of that round, Sir David Hunt, you have scored 28 points. You passed on to the Rossini opera, originally subtitled The Useless Precaution, is The Barber of Seville, and the English philosopher and statesman who wrote Money is like muck, not good except it be spread, was Francis Bacon. So David Hunt, thank you very much. So that brings us to the end of our holiday mastermind contest. And let's just remind ourselves of the score with a look at the scoreboard. There was a triple tie for second place on 23 points between Mrs. Patricia Owen, Dr. Philip Jenkins, and Ms. Rosemary James. But the winner with that fast, late run on the outside track with 28 points is retired ambassador Sir David Hunt. And now to present the trophy to Sir David, it's my pleasure to introduce the controller of BBC One, Mr. Alan Hart.
Well, that was certainly a tense and exciting way to celebrate the first 10 years of Mastermind. Our warm thanks to all 10 champions for taking part in this competition over the past 3 days. And of course, our congratulations to the winner, Sir David Hunt, who becomes the supreme champion of the first decade of Mastermind. And incidentally, becomes the first owner, too, of a matching set of Mastermind trophies. Sir David.
That completes our 10th anniversary celebrations, and now all that it remains for me to do is to say thank you to the Corporation of the City of London for their very kind hospitality to us here at Guildhall over the 3 days, and to hope that you at home have enjoyed this special tournament. Now, we'll be back at the end of the year with a new series of Mastermind, the start of our next decade. Until then, from all of us here, goodbye.
To become Mastermind's supreme champion. Sounds a bit like Crufts, doesn't it? The top occupant of that famous black chair in the 10 years the competition's been running. Well, Sir David qualified for the winners' contest by winning Mastermind in 1977. And before the first heat of this weekend's championship, he told us why he decided to enter.
I was watching a program and singing out the answers to the questions, you know, like everybody does, and our younger son said, well, if you're so dashed clever, why don't you go in for it yourself? So I said, well, I will. He said, you won't do any good, and not because he doesn't think I know enough, because he's very polite, really, but because he thought, he said, you'll lose your nerve. I said, no, I won't. He said, yes, you will, so I went in, that's how it happened.
Well, last night, after trailing in third place, if you watched the programme, in the specialist round, when he answered 13 questions on Alexander the Great, he then sprinted into the lead, passing the 3 other contestants who, well, actually, had all stuck on 23 points.
One of Scott's Waverley novels, what was The Heart of Midlothian?
The Tolbooth.
Correct. What is the name for an ancient manuscript on which the writing has been effaced to make room for new writing?
Palimpsest.
Correct. Colonel Gaddafi of Libya gained power after a military coup overthrew the king in 1969. Who was the former king?
Idris.
Correct. Which English philosopher and statesman wrote in an essay, money is like muck, not good except it be spread?
Pass.
Jacopo Peri is believed to have composed the earliest operas. In which Italian city were they first performed?
Venice.
No, Florence. What is the style of boat building called in which the external planks or strakes overlap downwards?
Clinker.
Correct. What was the name of the Russian marshal who achieved victory over Finland in 1939 to 40?
Tolbukin.
No, Timoshenko. In the human body, what... I've started, so I'll finish. In the human body, what is the more common name for the scapula?
The scapula. The, shoulder blade.
Shoulder blade is right. And at the end of that round, Sir David Hunt, you have scored 28 points.
Well, Sir David, many congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Scapula, you had a bit of a think about that.
Well, I was just about to say collarbone, but then I knew it wasn't that. I knew what it was, of course.
Sometimes you paused and sometimes you piled in. I mean, it was Venice instead of Florence or vice versa. I mean, how do you decide whether you're going to plumb? Does it just pop into your mind?
Yes, I'm afraid I was thinking of all these Venetian operas. I knew it started in Florence, but I'd forgotten them. I was thinking of Venice.
Do you find that difficult to concentrate? It's a matter of concentration, isn't it? There are the lights, there's Mr. Magnuson, there's the music, there's the famous chair.
That's exactly what it is, of course. It's all intended to put you off and prevent you from concentrating, and the whole aim of the game is not to be put off.
And how do you achieve that? How are you not put off?
Well, it's only a game. You've got to not be put off.
You've obviously got the temperament for that, have you? You don't find it difficult to concentrate like that?
No, not very difficult. No, I suppose it is difficult. I don't know. It sounds rather swank. I'm sorry. No, I just don't allow myself to be put off.
Well, now, your special subject questions, in fact, you have so many special subjects, don't you? You've answered questions on Alexander the Great, Cyprus, the Roman Revolution. That's more than a specialist knowledge, in a sense, isn't it? That's a wide knowledge indeed.
And a couple on military history, the other Alexander, the Field Marshal. Yes, don't forget, the level of the questions are pretty, on the whole, rather low. In fact, personally...
You think so,
yes, I do, yes. I personally, I blame my poor showing in the specialized subject on the fact that I do know them quite well, and I was rather expecting very difficult questions. And when I get up to this simple question, I can't believe my ears, and I give the answer to what would be the complicated question that I've known all about.
So you rate it's a pretty easy quiz on the whole?
Well, yes, in principle, yes. I do think so, yes.
Well, tell me, how have you acquired all this knowledge, particularly on the specialist subjects?
Reading books. You see, I started off reading very early in life, and it's been one of my main pleasures ever since.
But you obviously have a retentive mind as well.
Got a good memory within reason, yes, I think so. History is what I'm keen on, you see.
I see. So that was an enthusiasm you had in a sense.
Yes, I've always been fond of history. And as for modern history and current events, after all, I've been a diplomat for 30 years, roughly, and it's been my life. I mean, I've known it all.
And private secretary to Churchill and Attlee, all that. I mean,
yes, well, number 10's a very good, eligible central situation, as the housing agents say. You really do know what's going on in the world.
Yes. Do you have difficulty in selecting which special subjects? Since you're so vastly knowledgeable, I mean, presumably you have some difficulty deciding which of them you're going to tackle.
I always kick myself when I hear someone producing as a special subject the history of Europe since 1919, say, or something like that, because it always seems to me all those questions are so dashed easy, but I suppose that's because I know about it.
Yes. And the general knowledge, is that the key, do you think?
Oh, yes, that's what everybody wins on.
And that, again, is due to your wide reading and so on?
I think so, yes. Yes, reading the newspapers, reading books, reading... I do that. I used to publish, I once did for the Times for a couple of years, a yearbook of world events, which got me again in the practice. I rather enjoyed that.
But before the competition itself, do you mug up like mad? I mean, do you rehearse and do you revise?
Not a scrap, no.
So it's in there and it just pops out?
Yeah, it's really rather dangerous to do too much revising. I certainly wouldn't. I don't know how you would revise general knowledge. I never heard of such a thing. I do not, as one newspaper said today, read up geography. It was someone else who was reading up geography, not me. No, I know it's a danger to revise too much. I've learned that at Oxford.
You're 68. Now, that's no great age, let me say right away, at this day and age, 68. But, I mean, it is a time when lots of people's memories tend to be a little bit wayward. You finding your mind and your memory in that?
Oh, no, I don't think it's half as good as it used to be.
Really?
Yes, my memory is not as good as it used to be, by any means. Slower and all the rest of it. I was at its peak, I think, about the age of 15. When I really could look at a page of Latin verse and recite it afterwards, that sort of thing, you know.
Now, Fred Housego, of course, became a household name and much of a personality. Are you going to retire to that lovely house we've seen and never be seen again, or are you going to kind of put yourself about a bit more?
Well, I've got a lot of things to do. I'm chairman of the Commonwealth Institute, just down the road from here, a very good place. I want to go and look at it sometime. I've just joined the board of the Observer. I'm fairly active in my club.
Tell me, have you heard of a quiz on the other side called 321, which gives away lots of prizes? It strikes me you could mop that up without any trouble at all. You can completely refurnish your house as a result of that quiz. You've never thought of trying something like that?
I don't think that's the kind of thing I like. I like Mastermind because of Magnus Magnusson, and I would like to say this. I think the real star of that show is Magnus, because the way in which he decides in a flash whether the answer's right or wrong. I mean, I know he's read it up, he does his work conscientiously, but it's 8 sets of questions, there might be as many as 20 in each, that's 160, and he's got to decide in a flash, and he's so brilliant and so audible.
Well, I must say Sir David Hunt hasn't done too badly either. Sir David, many congratulations, and thank you very much.
Sandy Shaw, and he wrote congratulations for Cliff Richard. But in his estimation, his most important song is The Town I Loved So Well, a lament for his hometown.